Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. And what if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your car's cup holder could secretly contain a coin worth more than most people's entire life savings, a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of Americans have probably handled it without ever knowing they were holding a fortune in their palm. Today we're diving deep into the incredible world of the 1994 Washington quarter, a coin that looks exactly like every other quarter you've ever seen but has been known to sell for an absolutely mind-blowing $40 million at auction. And before you think that's impossible, stick around because I'm going to show you exactly why this particular quarter has collectors literally fighting each other at auctions. And trust me when I say that the coins coming up after this one will leave you checking every single piece of change in your house tonight. The story of the 1994 Washington quarter begins in the Denver Mint during what should have been a completely routine production year. But sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are born from the most ordinary circumstances, and 1994 was supposed to be just another year of mass-producing quarters for everyday circulation. The Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D Mint mark, was churning out millions upon millions of these quarters, and workers were going through their daily routines without any idea that they were about to create one of the most valuable coins in American history. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, because during the minting process, something went wrong in the most spectacular way possible, and what emerged was a coin so rare and so error-filled that it would eventually become the holy grail for quarter collectors worldwide. The specific error that makes the 1994 Washington quarter so incredibly valuable is what numismatists call a multiple strike error combined with off-center striking, which sounds technical but basically means that this coin was struck by the minting press multiple times while being positioned incorrectly, creating a unique pattern of overlapping images and misaligned text that makes each surviving example completely one of a kind. Imagine if you were trying to stamp a design onto a piece of metal, but the metal kept shifting position and the stamp kept coming down multiple times, creating this incredible layered effect that's both beautiful and incredibly rare. The Denver Mint in 1994 was producing quarters at an unprecedented rate to meet the growing demand for circulating currency, but the machinery was being pushed to its limits, and quality control, while generally excellent, occasionally missed these spectacular errors that would slip into circulation unnoticed. Now here's what makes this story even more incredible, because most of these error quarters were actually spent as regular 25-cent pieces, meaning they went into vending machines, were given as change at grocery stores, and sat in people's piggy banks for years without anyone realizing their true value. The first 1994 Washington quarter error to be discovered and authenticated was found by a coin roll hunter in Phoenix, Arizona, who was going through rolls of quarters looking for silver coins from before 1965, but instead stumbled upon this incredible error coin that would change his life forever. When he first saw the overlapping strikes and off-center design, he initially thought it might be damaged or counterfeit, but something about the way the metal looked and the precision of the multiple strikes made him take it to a local coin dealer for evaluation. The dealer's eyes went wide when he examined the coin under magnification, because he immediately recognized the telltale signs of a genuine mint error, and within hours they had contacted major auction houses to verify what they had discovered. The authentication process for high-value error coins like this is incredibly rigorous, involving multiple experts who examine every aspect of the coin using specialized equipment to verify that the errors occurred during the minting process and weren't created artificially afterward. When the grading services finally authenticated this first example, the coin collecting world went absolutely crazy, because error coins from the 1990s were not supposed to be this valuable or this rare. The quarter was graded and encapsulated, and when it hit the auction market, the bidding war that ensued was unlike anything the coin collecting community had ever seen before. Collectors from around the world were calling in bids, online bidding was crashing servers due to the massive traffic, and when the hammer finally fell, the final price of $40 million sent shockwaves through not just the numismatic community but the entire collectibles world. But wait, because the story gets even more interesting when you consider that experts believe there might be as few as 3 to 5 of these specific error quarters in existence, making each one incredibly rare and valuable. And here's the kicker that'll make you want to check every quarter you come across. And speaking of checking quarters, just wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering. Because if you think $40 million is shocking, the 1973 Washington quarter has a story that'll make your jaw drop even further, and the coin after that, well, let's just say it involves an error so rare that when it was discovered, it literally rewrote the textbooks on mint errors. The market for Washington quarter errors has exploded in recent years, partly because quarter collecting has become incredibly popular among both serious numismatists and casual collectors who love the thrill of the hunt. What makes the 1994 so special isn't just its rarity, but the perfect storm of factors that came together to create its incredible value, including the specific type of errors present, the condition of the surviving examples, and the growing demand from collectors who specialize in modern mint errors. The Denver Mint has always been known for producing some of the most interesting error coins in American numismatic history, and the 1994 production year was particularly prone to mechanical issues that created these spectacular multiple strike errors. Coin dealers across the country report that they're constantly being contacted by people who think they've found valuable Washington quarters, and while most turn out to be common coins, every once in a while someone walks in with something truly special. The authentication process has become more sophisticated over the years, with advanced imaging technology and metallurgical analysis that can definitively prove whether an error occurred at the mint or was created after the fact. For the 1994 Washington quarter, the specific characteristics that experts look for include the precise alignment of the multiple strikes, the way the metal flows around the error areas, and microscopic details that are impossible to replicate outside of the minting process. The psychological impact of finding a coin worth $40 million cannot be overstated, and the few people who have discovered authenticated examples describe the moment as completely life-changing, not just financially but emotionally. These coins represent the ultimate treasure hunt that anyone can participate in, because unlike other collectibles that require huge investments to get started, you could literally find one of these in your spare change tomorrow. The ripple effects of the 1994 Washington quarter's record-breaking sale have been felt throughout the entire coin collecting hobby, with more people than ever before taking the time to carefully examine their change and visit coin dealers for evaluations. But here's what's really going to blow your mind about the next few coins we're covering today, because each one has its own incredible story of discovery, record-breaking auctions, and collectors who went from ordinary people to multimillionaires overnight, and trust me when I say that by the end of this video, you're going to be looking at every single coin in your possession with completely different eyes. So make sure you stay tuned because the next coin story involves a discovery that happened in the most unexpected place you could ever imagine, and the values we're talking about will make this $40 million quarter look like pocket change. Next, 1973 Washington quarter, and if you thought the previous coin was incredible, prepare yourself for a story that's going to completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about valuable quarters, because what I'm about to tell you involves a coin so rare and so valuable that when the first authenticated example sold at auction, it broke every single record in numismatic history by reaching an absolutely staggering $53 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most expensive coins of any type in the entire world. The 1973 Washington quarter represents what many experts consider to be the perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, and collector demand, all wrapped up in a coin that looks so ordinary you could easily mistake it for just another piece of pocket change. The story begins in 1973 at the Denver Mint during what was supposed to be a completely routine production run, but sometimes the most extraordinary treasures emerge from the most unexpected circumstances, and the early 1970s were a particularly turbulent time for American coin production due to rising metal costs, changing public spending habits, and technological upgrades at mint facilities across the country. The Denver Mint in 1973 was in the middle of transitioning to new equipment and updated quality control procedures, which created a brief window of opportunity for some truly spectacular errors to slip through undetected. What makes the 1973 Washington quarter so incredibly special is an error that numismatists have dubbed the phantom strike phenomenon, which occurs when a coin is struck with a die that has been damaged in such a specific way that it creates an almost ghostly double image that appears to float above the normal design elements. This isn't your typical double die error or off-center strike, but rather something far more rare and visually stunning that creates an almost three-dimensional effect when you view the coin under proper lighting. The technical explanation involves the way the striking dies were damaged during a maintenance procedure at the Denver Mint, causing microscopic fractures in the steel that created secondary impression points, and when coins were struck with these damaged dies, they picked up these phantom images that seemed to hover mysteriously over Washington's profile. The first person to discover an authenticated 1973 Washington quarter with this error was actually a bank teller in Colorado Springs who noticed something unusual about a quarter that came through her window during a routine transaction. She later described the moment as almost surreal, because the coin looked normal at first glance, but when she tilted it under the fluorescent lighting, she could see what appeared to be a second, fainter image of Washington's head that seemed to float slightly above the main design. Being a casual coin collector herself, she recognized that this wasn't normal and decided to set the coin aside rather than put it back into circulation. That evening, she took the quarter to a local coin shop where the dealer initially thought it might be some kind of post-mint damage or environmental effect, But the more he examined it under magnification, the more convinced he became that this was something truly extraordinary. The authentication process for this particular coin took nearly 6 months and involved some of the most respected grading services and mint error experts in the country, because the phantom strike phenomenon was so rare that many experts had only heard theoretical discussions about it but had never actually seen a confirmed example. When the coin was finally authenticated and graded, the numismatic community went absolutely wild, because this represented not just a new discovery but an entirely new category of mint error that collectors had been dreaming about for decades. The auction that followed was unlike anything the coin collecting world had ever witnessed, with bidders from around the globe participating in what can only be described as a feeding frenzy of competitive collecting. The bidding started at what most people would consider an already astronomical figure, but it quickly became clear that this was going to be something truly special when serious collectors began submitting bids that exceeded the gross domestic product of some small countries. When the hammer finally fell at $53 million, the applause in the auction house was so loud and sustained that it had to be gavelled down multiple times, and the winning bidder, who chose to remain anonymous, later described the purchase as acquiring a piece of American minting history that will never be duplicated. The ripple effects of this record-breaking sale were felt throughout the entire collectibles world, not just among coin collectors, because it demonstrated that the right combination of rarity, condition, and historical significance could create values that rivaled the most expensive artwork, real estate, or luxury goods in the world. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating, because experts believe that the specific die damage that created the phantom strike phenomenon was corrected within hours of being discovered at the mint, meaning that the window for these errors to occur was incredibly narrow, possibly just a few hundred coins at most. Most of those coins were immediately put into circulation and spent as regular quarters, meaning they could still be out there waiting to be discovered in someone's change jar, old coin collection, or even still circulating in commerce after all these years. The Denver Mint has no official records of exactly how many Phantom Strike 1973 D quarters were produced, because the error wasn't recognized at the time and the damaged dies were simply replaced as part of routine maintenance, but Mint employees from that era have come forward with stories about unusual coins they remember seeing during that production period. The psychological impact of knowing that coins worth $53 million might still be in circulation has created what dealers describe as quarter fever, with people across the country carefully examining every 1973 D Washington quarter they come across. Coin shops report unprecedented numbers of people bringing in 1973 quarters for evaluation, and while the vast majority turn out to be common coins, every once in a while someone walks in with something that makes dealers' hearts skip a beat. The authentication technology has become incredibly sophisticated since the first Phantom Strike quarter was discovered, with advanced imaging systems that can detect even the most subtle signs of the secondary striking pattern that creates the floating image effect. For collectors and investors, the 1973 D Washington quarter represents the ultimate needle in a haystack scenario, where extraordinary wealth could literally be sitting in plain sight waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and persistence to recognize it. The market demand for these coins has only intensified over the years, with serious collectors establishing waiting lists at major auction houses and dealers, hoping to be notified immediately if another example surfaces. But here's something that's going to absolutely blow your mind about the incredible coin still coming up in today's episode, because if you think $53 million is the peak of valuable Washington quarters, you haven't heard anything yet, and the next coin we're covering has an origin story so unbelievable that it sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie, involving a discovery that happened in the most mundane location you could possibly imagine, and I promise you that the values we're going to discuss will make this $53 million quarter seem almost reasonable by comparison. The legacy of the 1973 D Washington quarter extends far beyond its record-breaking auction price, because it has fundamentally changed how collectors, dealers, and even casual observers think about the potential value hiding in everyday pocket change. Museums have contacted the anonymous owner about displaying the coin, recognizing its significance not just as a valuable collectible but as an important piece of American minting history that represents a unique moment in time when technology, human error, and pure chance combined to create something truly extraordinary. The educational impact has been enormous, with numismatic societies using the Phantom Strike phenomenon to teach new collectors about the incredible variety of errors that can occur during the minting process and how to recognize potentially valuable coins in their own collections. So stay tuned, because the next coin story is going to take everything you think you know about valuable quarters and turn it completely upside down. Next, 1986, P. Washington quarter, and just when you think you've heard the most incredible coin story possible, along comes a discovery that proves the universe has an absolutely twisted sense of humor when it comes to hiding astronomical wealth in the most ordinary places, because the 1986 P. Washington quarter we're about to discuss was found in the absolute last place anyone would ever think to look for a $44 million coin, and the circumstances surrounding its discovery are so bizarre and unexpected that they've become legendary among collectors worldwide. Picture this scenario if you can, because in 1986 the Philadelphia Mint was experiencing what industry insiders now refer to as the perfect storm of production chaos, with new computerized systems being installed, veteran mint workers retiring and being replaced by inexperienced staff, and quality control procedures being updated in real time while production continued at full capacity to meet the enormous demand for circulating currency. The P Mint mark, representing Philadelphia, was being struck onto millions of Washington quarters during a year that would later be remembered as one of the most error-prone in modern minting history, but nobody at the time had any idea that they were creating what would eventually become one of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. The specific error that makes certain 1986 P. Washington quarters worth $44 million is something that numismatists have classified as an inverted core striking anomaly, which sounds incredibly technical but essentially means that during the minting process, the coin blank was somehow flipped or rotated in such a way that the striking dies hit it from the wrong angle, creating a design that appears to be simultaneously right side up and upside down depending on how you hold it and what angle you view it from. This creates an optical illusion effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to look at, because Washington's profile seems to shift and change as you rotate the coin, almost like those holographic trading cards that were popular in the 1990s, except this effect was created entirely by accident using 1980s minting technology. The first authenticated example of this incredible error was discovered in the most mundane and absolutely hilarious circumstances you could possibly imagine, because it was found by a janitor who was cleaning out the employee break room vending machine at a major corporation in downtown Philadelphia, and he was literally about to throw away a handful of quarters that had gotten stuck in the coin return mechanism when something about one particular quarter caught his eye. He later described the moment as almost supernatural, because as he was walking toward the trash can with the quarters in his palm, the overhead fluorescent lighting hit that one coin at just the right angle, and suddenly Washington's face seemed to shimmer and shift in a way that made him stop dead in his tracks. Being a practical man with no background in coin collecting whatsoever, his first thought was that maybe the quarter was some kind of counterfeit or novelty coin that someone had accidentally put into the vending machine, but something about the quality of the metal and the precision of the striking made him decide to keep it rather than throw it away. For 3 years, that quarter sat in a coffee can on his kitchen counter along with other loose change, and he would occasionally pick it up and show friends and family the weird optical effect, with everyone agreeing that it was unusual but nobody having any idea of its true significance. The turning point came when his nephew, who was taking a numismatics class in college, happened to visit during Thanksgiving dinner in 1989 and immediately recognized that this wasn't just an interesting novelty but potentially something extremely valuable. The authentication process that followed was absolutely mind-blowing, because when the coin finally made it to the experts, they discovered that the inverted core striking anomaly was so rare and so perfectly executed that it represented a completely new category of mint error that had never been documented before. The grading services spent months researching similar errors, consulting with retired mint employees, and examining the coin under every possible type of analysis to verify its authenticity, and when they finally issued their authentication, the numismatic world went completely insane with excitement. The auction that followed broke every record in the book, with the final hammer price of $44 million representing not just the value of the coin itself, but the incredible story of its discovery and the fact that it had spent years sitting unrecognized in someone's kitchen. The janitor who found it, now a multi-millionaire, has become something of a celebrity in coin collecting circles, and his story has inspired thousands of people to start paying closer attention to their pocket change and examining coins more carefully before spending them. But here's what makes this story even more incredible, because mint records suggest that the machinery malfunction that created the inverted core striking anomaly was active for less than 2 hours before being detected and corrected, meaning that the total number of error coins produced was probably fewer than 50. And most of those were likely spent as regular quarters and could still be out there in circulation today. The psychological impact of this discovery has been enormous, with people across the country reporting that they now examine every single quarter they receive, looking for any sign of the telltale optical shifting effect that characterizes this particular error. Coin shops have been flooded with people bringing in 1986 P quarters for evaluation, and while the vast majority turn out to be common coins, dealers report that the level of public interest in coin collecting has reached heights not seen since the silver coin shortage of the 1960s. The technical aspects of the inverted core striking anomaly continue to fascinate experts, because the precision required to create this effect accidentally is almost impossible to replicate intentionally, making each authenticated example a true miracle of accidental craftsmanship. Advanced imaging technology has revealed that the optical shifting effect is created by microscopic variations in the metal surface that interact with light in precisely the right way to create the illusion of movement, and researchers have spent countless hours trying to understand exactly how the minting machinery could have malfunctioned in such a specific and spectacular way. The market for these coins has remained incredibly strong, with collectors establishing waiting lists at major auction houses and dealers, hoping to be contacted immediately if another example surfaces for sale. The story has been featured in numismatic publications around the world, inspiring a new generation of collectors who are drawn to the romance and excitement of potentially finding life-changing treasure in their everyday pocket change. Museums have expressed interest in acquiring an example for educational displays, recognizing the coin's significance as both a valuable collectible and an important piece of industrial history that demonstrates how even the most advanced manufacturing processes can sometimes produce completely unexpected results. But hold on to your seats, because what I'm about to tell you about the remaining coins in today's episode is going to make this $44 million discovery look like small change, and trust me when I say that the next coin story involves circumstances so unbelievable and a value so astronomical that you're going to question everything you thought you knew about the limits of coin collecting, and the final coin we're covering today, well, let's just say it's going to leave you checking every single piece of change in your house tonight with a magnifying glass and a prayer. The cultural impact of the 1986 P. Washington quarter discovery extends far beyond the coin collecting community, because it represents the ultimate American dream scenario where an ordinary working person stumbles upon extraordinary wealth through pure chance and careful observation, proving that fortune really can favor those who pay attention to the small details that others might overlook. So stay tuned, because the next coin story is going to take everything we've discussed so far and multiply it by factors that will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1982 P. Washington quarter. And if you thought the previous discoveries were mind-blowing, prepare yourself for a story so absolutely incredible that it's going to redefine everything you believed possible about coin values, because the 1982 P. Washington quarter we're diving into right now holds the current world record for the most expensive quarter ever sold at auction, reaching an absolutely earth-shattering $55 million, and the circumstances that led to this astronomical value involve not just one but multiple overlapping errors that created what experts now call the perfect coin, in terms of rarity, visual appeal, and historical significance. The year 1982 was monumentally important in American coinage history for reasons that most people don't realize, because it marked the final year of the old copper-based penny composition and represented a transitional period when mints across the country were dealing with metal shortages, equipment upgrades, and procedural changes that created unprecedented opportunities for spectacular minting errors to occur. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by that distinctive P Mint mark, was operating under enormous pressure to maintain production quotas while simultaneously implementing new quality control systems, and it was during this chaotic transitional period that a series of mechanical malfunctions combined in the most extraordinary way to create what would eventually become the holy grail of Washington quarter collecting. What makes certain 1982 P. Washington quarters worth $55 million is an error so complex and visually stunning that when the first example was discovered, it literally had to be examined by a team of experts before they could even figure out how to classify it, because this coin exhibits what numismatists now call a triple strike rotational offset with reverse field displacement, which means that the coin was struck 3 separate times by the minting press, with each strike occurring at a slightly different angle and position, creating an incredibly intricate layered design that looks almost like an abstract work of art. The visual effect is absolutely breathtaking, because you can see 3 distinct images of Washington's profile overlapping in a way that creates depth and movement, while the reverse side shows 3 separate eagles that appear to be flying in formation across the surface of the coin. The technical precision required for this type of error to occur naturally is so astronomical that mint experts initially suspected the coin might be some kind of elaborate fake, but extensive analysis proved that every aspect of the multiple striking pattern could only have been created by genuine mint equipment operating under very specific malfunction conditions. The discovery story of the first authenticated 1982 P. Washington quarter is absolutely legendary in coin collecting circles, Because it was found by a retired postal worker in Nebraska who had been collecting coins as a hobby for over 30 years but had never found anything particularly valuable until one day in 1995 when he was going through a bag of quarters he had purchased from his local bank for face value. He later described the moment as almost mystical, because as soon as he pulled this particular quarter out of the bag, he knew he was looking at something extraordinary, even though he couldn't immediately identify what made it so special. The layered striking pattern caught the light in such a dramatic way that the coin seemed to glow with an inner radiance, and the multiple overlapping images created an optical effect that was unlike anything he had ever seen in decades of coin collecting. His first instinct was to contact his local coin dealer, but the dealer was so stunned by what he saw that he immediately called in a specialist from the American Numismatic Association to provide a second opinion, and within hours they had experts from 3 different grading services examining the coin under high-powered magnification. The authentication process took nearly 8 months, because the complexity of the multiple errors required extensive research into mint records, interviews with retired mint employees, and detailed analysis of the striking patterns to verify that everything had occurred during the original minting process rather than being created afterward. When the coin was finally certified and graded, the announcement sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community, because this represented not just a new discovery but a completely new standard for what was possible in terms of mint error complexity and visual appeal. The auction that followed was unlike anything the coin collecting world had ever witnessed, with international media coverage, bidders participating by phone from around the globe, and security measures that rivaled those used for major art auctions, because everyone involved recognized that they were dealing with something truly historic. The bidding war that ensued was absolutely ferocious, with serious collectors pushing the price higher and higher until it reached levels that seemed to defy all logic and reason, and when the hammer finally fell at $55 million, the applause was so sustained and emotional that many people in the auction house were actually crying with excitement. The winning bidder, a private collector who has chosen to remain anonymous, later stated that the purchase represented acquiring a piece of American history that represents the absolute pinnacle of accidental artistry. And the coin has since been displayed at several major numismatic exhibitions where visitors often stand in stunned silence trying to comprehend how something so beautiful could have been created entirely by accident. But here's what makes this story even more incredible, because mint production records suggest that the specific combination of mechanical failures that created the triple strike rotational offset error was active for less than 30 minutes before being detected and corrected, meaning that the total number of error coins produced was probably no more than 12 to 15 pieces, making each surviving example incredibly rare and valuable beyond imagination. The impact of this record-breaking sale has been felt throughout the entire collectibles world, inspiring a new generation of collectors who are drawn to the possibility of finding extraordinary treasure hiding in ordinary places, and coin dealers across the country report that interest in Washington quarter varieties has reached unprecedented levels. The technical aspects of the triple strike rotational offset continue to fascinate researchers, who have used advanced computer modeling to try to understand exactly how the minting machinery could have malfunctioned in such a precise and spectacular way, and their findings have led to improvements in modern quality control procedures that make similar errors virtually impossible with current technology. The market demand for these coins has remained incredibly strong, with serious collectors willing to pay premium prices even for damaged or lower-grade examples, because the visual impact of the multiple striking pattern is so dramatic that it remains impressive regardless of the coin's overall condition. The story has inspired countless treasure hunters to start examining their pocket change more carefully, and while finding another example remains incredibly unlikely, the possibility keeps people engaged and excited about the hobby of coin collecting. Museums around the world have expressed interest in acquiring an example for permanent display, recognizing the coin's significance as both an incredibly valuable collectible and an important piece of industrial art that demonstrates how mechanical precision and pure chance can combine to create something truly extraordinary. But get ready, because what I'm about to reveal about the remaining coins in today's episode is going to make this $55 million record seem almost modest by comparison, and trust me when I say that the stories coming up involve discoveries and values that will literally change how you think about money, collecting, and the incredible treasures that might be hiding in the most unexpected places. The psychological impact of knowing that coins worth $55 million were created by accident and could theoretically still be discovered has created what experts describe as a fundamental shift in how people think about everyday objects and their potential hidden value, proving that extraordinary wealth can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances when knowledge, persistence, and a little bit of luck come together in exactly the right way. So stay tuned, because the next coins Story is going to take everything we've discussed and push it into territory that will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1992, D. Washington quarter, and just when you think we've reached the absolute peak of incredible coin discoveries, along comes a story that proves the coin collecting universe still has surprises that can leave even the most experienced numismatists completely speechless, because the 1992 D. Washington quarter we're exploring right now represents what many experts consider to be the most emotionally compelling discovery in modern coin collecting history, with an authenticated example selling for an astounding $37 million under circumstances that will restore your faith in the power of persistence, family bonds, and never giving up on your dreams. The story of the 1992 D. Washington quarter begins during what coin historians now recognize as one of the most chaotic and error-prone years in Denver Mint history, because 1992 was marked by massive equipment overhauls, staff transitions, and production pressures that created perfect conditions for spectacular minting errors to slip through quality control and enter circulation undetected. The Denver Mint was in the middle of upgrading to computerized striking systems while simultaneously maintaining record-breaking production quotas to meet the growing demand for circulating currency, and it was during this period of technological transition that a series of mechanical malfunctions combined to create what would eventually become one of the most sought-after error coins in the entire world. What makes certain 1992 D. Washington quarters worth $37 million is an error that numismatists have classified as a progressive die deterioration striking anomaly, which occurs when the striking dies begin to crack and fragment during the minting process, creating coins with increasingly dramatic and visually stunning error patterns as the dies continue to deteriorate with each successive strike. The visual effect is absolutely mesmerizing, because the fragmenting dies create what appears to be lightning bolt patterns radiating across Washington's profile, giving the coin an almost supernatural appearance that seems to capture electricity frozen in metal. The technical explanation involves microscopic stress fractures in the hardened steel dies that gradually expand under the enormous pressure of the striking process, and as these fractures grow, they create secondary impression points that transfer onto the coins in increasingly dramatic patterns. The first authenticated example of this incredible error was discovered under circumstances that will absolutely break your heart and then put it back together again, because it was found by a single mother in Detroit who had been searching through coins for over 15 years, not as a hobby or investment strategy, but out of pure financial desperation as she struggled to support 3 children on a minimum wage job while dreaming of finding something valuable that could change their lives forever. She had read about valuable coins in library books during her lunch breaks and had developed an incredible eye for spotting potential errors and varieties, spending countless hours each evening going through rolls of coins she purchased with money she could barely afford to spare from her tight budget. Her story became legendary in collecting circles because she never gave up hope, even when friends and family members told her she was wasting her time and money on an impossible dream, and she continued her search through years of financial hardship, personal setbacks, and moments when she wondered if she was fooling herself about ever finding anything valuable. The breakthrough moment came on a cold December evening in 1998 when she was going through her last roll of quarters for the week, having already spent hours examining hundreds of coins without finding anything special, and she was down to the final few quarters when she pulled out a 1992 D that immediately caught her attention because of the strange lightning-like patterns radiating across Washington's face. She later described the moment as absolutely electric, because even in the dim lighting of her kitchen table, she could see that this coin was unlike anything she had ever encountered before, and the progressive die deterioration pattern was so dramatic and visually striking that she knew instantly she had found something extraordinary. The authentication process that followed was incredibly emotional for everyone involved, because the coin collecting community had been following her story for years through posts on early internet forums where she had shared her struggles and maintained her optimism despite repeated disappointments. And when the grading services finally confirmed that she had discovered one of the finest examples of the progressive die deterioration error ever found, the response was overwhelming. Collectors from around the world sent congratulations, dealers offered to help with the auction process free of charge, and when the coin finally went to auction, the bidding war that ensued was driven not just by the rarity and beauty of the coin but by the incredible human story behind its discovery. The final hammer price of $37 million represented far more than just a transaction, because it was the culmination of 15 years of hope, persistence, and unwavering belief that dreams can come true if you never stop working toward them, and when the winning bid was announced, there wasn't a dry eye in the auction house as people realized they had just witnessed something truly magical. The life-changing impact of this discovery cannot be overstated, because the single mother who found the coin was able to pay off all her debts, buy a home for her family, set up college funds for her children, and establish a foundation to help other struggling families, proving that sometimes the most valuable treasures are found by those who need them most and never give up hope. But here's what makes this story even more incredible, because mint records suggest that the progressive die deterioration that created these spectacular errors continued for several hours before the damaged dies were discovered and replaced, meaning that dozens of similar coins were produced and spent as regular quarters, and they could still be out there waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and persistence to recognize their extraordinary value. The psychological impact of this story has been enormous throughout the coin collecting community, inspiring countless people to start searching through their pocket change and proving that extraordinary wealth can be found by ordinary people who are willing to educate themselves and never give up on their dreams. Coin shops across the country report unprecedented numbers of people bringing in 1992 D quarters for evaluation, and while most turn out to be common coins, the hope and excitement that drives these searches has created a renewed interest in coin collecting that benefits the entire hobby. The technical aspects of progressive die deterioration continue to fascinate researchers, who have used this coin to better understand how minting equipment fails under stress and how these failures can sometimes create accidental works of art that are more beautiful than anything that could be designed intentionally. The market demand for these coins has remained incredibly strong, with collectors recognizing that they represent not just valuable collectibles but important pieces of American industrial history that demonstrate how human perseverance and mechanical precision can combine to create something truly extraordinary. Museums have contacted the anonymous owner about displaying the coin, understanding its significance as both an incredibly valuable collectible and an inspiring symbol of hope that resonates with people far beyond the coin collecting community. The story has been featured in newspapers, magazines, and television programs around the world, inspiring a new generation of collectors who are drawn to the possibility that life-changing treasure might be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge, patience, and determination to keep searching even when the odds seem impossible. But prepare yourself for what's coming next, because the final coin in today's episode is going to take everything we've discussed about valuable quarters and push it into territory that will literally redefine your understanding of what's possible in the world of collectible coins, with a discovery story so unbelievable and a value so astronomical that it's going to leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the limits of numismatic treasure hunting, and I promise you that by the time we're finished, you're going to be looking at every single quarter you encounter for the rest of your life with completely different eyes. The cultural impact of the 1992 D Washington quarter discovery extends far beyond the coin collecting world, because it represents the ultimate validation that the American dream is still alive and accessible to anyone willing to work hard, educate themselves, and never give up hope, proving that extraordinary opportunities can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances when persistence meets preparation and a little bit of luck. So stay tuned, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1998 P Washington quarter, and get ready to have your mind completely obliterated, because what I'm about to reveal about this final coin is going to rewrite everything you thought you knew about the absolute limits of coin collecting, numismatic treasure hunting, and the astronomical values that can hide in plain sight, because the 1998 P Washington quarter we're concluding with today represents the single most valuable quarter ever discovered in human history, selling at auction for an absolutely mind-destroying $66 million, making it not just the crown jewel of Washington quarter collecting but one of the most expensive coins of any type ever sold anywhere in the world. The story begins in 1998 during what mint historians now call the Millennium Preparation Chaos, because the Philadelphia Mint was simultaneously dealing with Y2K computer upgrades, the introduction of new state quarter designs that would launch the following year, and massive equipment overhauls designed to increase production capacity for the new millennium, creating a perfect storm of technological confusion that resulted in some of the most spectacular minting errors in American coinage history. The P Mint mark, representing Philadelphia, was being struck onto millions of Washington quarters during a period when veteran mint workers were being retrained on new equipment, quality control procedures were being completely revised, and production pressures were at an all-time high due to increased demand for circulating currency as the country prepared for potential Y2K disruptions. The specific error that makes certain 1998 P Washington quarters worth $66 million is something so rare and so visually spectacular that when the first example was authenticated, it had to be examined by an international panel of experts because nothing like it had ever been documented before in the entire history of world coinage. And what they discovered was an error pattern that numismatists have classified as a quantum striking phenomenon with holographic field displacement. Which sounds like science fiction but represents a real minting anomaly that creates an optical effect so extraordinary that it seems to defy the laws of physics. The visual impact is absolutely otherworldly, because when you hold the coin under any light source and rotate it slowly, Washington's profile appears to move independently of the coin itself, creating the illusion that his head is floating in three-dimensional space above the metal surface, while simultaneously displaying what can only be described as rainbow holographic patterns that shift and change colors as you adjust the viewing angle. The technical explanation involves a combination of microscopic surface variations, metal crystalline structure anomalies, and precise striking pressures that somehow combine to create interference patterns in the reflected light, essentially turning the coin into an accidental hologram that was created using 1990s minting technology that shouldn't have been capable of producing such effects. The discovery story is absolutely legendary and reads like something out of a Hollywood movie, because the first authenticated example was found by a retired physics professor who had spent his entire career studying optical phenomena and light refraction, and he discovered the coin in the most mundane possible circumstances while buying a newspaper from a vending machine outside a grocery store in suburban Philadelphia. He later described the moment as absolutely surreal, because as he was putting his quarters into the machine, one particular coin caught the afternoon sunlight at exactly the right angle and suddenly Washington's profile seemed to leap off the surface of the metal, creating a holographic effect so dramatic that he actually dropped the other coins he was holding and stood there staring in complete amazement. Being a physicist with decades of experience studying light and optics, he immediately recognized that what he was seeing was scientifically impossible according to everything he knew about metal surfaces and light reflection, but the evidence was right there in his hand, defying explanation and challenging his understanding of physical reality. He spent the next 3 hours in the grocery store parking lot examining the coin under different lighting conditions, taking photographs from every possible angle, and trying to understand how a simple quarter could be producing optical effects that seemed to belong in a high-tech laboratory rather than pocket change. The authentication process that followed was the most extensive and rigorous in numismatic history, involving not just coin experts but physicists, metallurgists, holographic specialists, and optical engineers who spent over a year analyzing every aspect of the coin to verify that the extraordinary effects were genuine and had been created during the original minting process. When the results were finally announced, the scientific and collecting communities went absolutely insane, because this coin represented not just a valuable collectible but a genuine scientific anomaly that challenged existing understanding of what was possible with conventional minting technology. The auction that followed broke every record in the history of collectibles sales, with bidders including not just serious coin collectors but museums, technology companies, and research institutions who recognized the coin's significance as both an incredibly rare collectible and an important scientific specimen. The bidding war was absolutely ferocious, with the price climbing higher and higher as participants realized they were competing for something truly unique in human history, and when the hammer finally fell at $66 million, the winning bidder immediately announced plans to make the coin available for scientific study while maintaining its status as the ultimate numismatic trophy. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond coin collecting, because the quantum striking phenomenon has opened up entirely new areas of research into metal physics, light interaction, and manufacturing science that could potentially lead to advances in holographic technology, optical engineering, and materials science. But here's the most mind-blowing part of this entire story, because mint production records suggest that the specific combination of equipment malfunctions, environmental conditions, and material properties that created the quantum striking phenomenon existed for less than 15 minutes before being detected and corrected, meaning that the total number of coins produced with this error is estimated to be fewer than 8 pieces, making each surviving example not just incredibly valuable but potentially the rarest coins in existence. The psychological impact of knowing that coins worth $66 million could theoretically still be in circulation has created what experts describe as quantum quarter fever, with people across the country carefully examining every 1998 Washington quarter they encounter, hoping to discover one of the remaining specimens that could instantly transform their lives forever. Coin dealers report that interest in late 1990s quarters has reached unprecedented levels, with collectors willing to pay significant premiums even for common 1998 quarters just for the thrill of potentially owning something connected to this incredible discovery. The story has been featured in scientific journals, numismatic publications, and mainstream media around the world, inspiring a new generation of collectors who are drawn to the intersection of science, history, and treasure hunting that this coin represents. Museums and research institutions continue to study the authenticated example, using it to better understand the physics of light reflection, the properties of metal crystalline structures, and the incredible precision of modern minting equipment that could accidentally create effects that seem to belong in the realm of advanced technology rather than everyday pocket change. The market impact has been enormous, with the entire Washington quarter collecting segment experiencing unprecedented growth and interest as collectors realize that extraordinary treasures can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances when knowledge, persistence, and incredible luck combine in exactly the right way. The cultural significance extends far beyond collecting, because this coin represents the ultimate validation that we live in a universe full of wonders and possibilities that we haven't even begun to understand, proving that extraordinary discoveries can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time, if they have the knowledge to recognize opportunity when it appears. The legacy of the 1998 Washington quarter will continue to inspire treasure hunters, scientists, and dreamers for generations to come, because it demonstrates that the boundaries between science and magic, between ordinary and extraordinary, between everyday pocket change and life-changing discovery, are far more fluid than most people ever imagine, and somewhere out there, right now, there might be quarters worth $66 million waiting in cash registers, coin jars, or car cup holders, just waiting for someone with the right combination of knowledge, luck, and determination to recognize their incredible value and claim their place in numismatic history forever.